getting paid, whatever it was to get into this joint, to see a middle-aged white guy get paid to do what he used to get in trouble in 7th grade.
Best $2 I ever spent.
Yeah, it's not that big a deal, but I am very grateful that you guys came. We do have a couple of other folks who are coming. Let's see. Your daughter is still out at the Little Turtles room, right? Okay, I'm going to wait for her. So we will, in a few moments. There she is. Holy smoke, we've been waiting for you forever, for God's sake. No, this is very sweet of you guys to come. Come on in, you guys. I said earlier the $5 seats are going for $2.50, so chair. Usually the best way to handle these things, I mean, you guys don't want to hear me pontificate about how I got here, which was actually on a plane. Yeah, they get better, I promise. But usually what happens and what seems to go, especially in a smaller group like this, and we have an hour, so to the extent that you guys have questions about work that I've done or people with whom I've worked, or that, that usually is the best way to go. I'm happy to talk about myself. I'm an actor. We do that all the time. We have egos as big as Montana. But the truth is that I want to make sure that you guys get what you want. So if that means that you want to line up and ask questions, and it's a small enough room, the truth is you probably don't even have to ask them on the microphone. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I've got a huge mouth. So, but the truth is that I don't know that we even need for you guys to line up and stand in line. We did that yesterday, and some folks didn't get a chance to ask questions, and we've got a smaller group today, so I think we'll be able to answer them. So is that okay with you guys? You guys just want to do like a Q&A for the next hour? Yeah. Okay, and I promise there's a very... Where'd you go, sweet? Oh, Jerry. I promised I would sing you that goofy song. So I'll sing you that goofy song, not now, but later, okay? So why don't, I'm going to go up here only because they set this up for me and it makes me feel important. But why don't you guys go ahead and let's just have some questions. And if you have questions about how I got to this position or whatever, then I'm happy to answer them. I just don't want to assume anything. This is your time. And you're gracious enough to have me. So why don't we just let you guys ask questions? Anybody have one? If we don't have questions, then I'm done.
Hate to beat the dead horse, but any more progress on getting Frank on the show?
Boy, what was your name again, sir?
Brandon.
Brandon is asking me about, I do a podcast, many of you know about it, called Talkin' Tunes. And thank you. For those of you who don't, you should listen to it. It's free, so I don't get anything out of it, but incredible gratification. It is TALKINTOONS, Talkin' Tunes. You can get it on iTunes, my website, which is robpaulsenlive.com. I also have an app which is free for iPhones or Android devices. And what Brendan was asking about is, have I had any luck getting Frank Welker on? And I have not yet. I play golf with Frank. He and Nolan North and Jim Cummings and I live within about 4 miles of each other. We see each other all the time. It's like voiceover land or voiceover hell, depending on your perspective. And so Frank, I can just tell you this about Frank. Frank is certainly the best of us. He is such an incredibly gifted man. I've known Frank Welker for over 30 years. Frank is, for those of you who don't know, is the original voice of Freddy on Scooby-Doo since 1969. He's been doing that show. And now he's the voice of Scooby-Doo because Don Messick, who was the voice of Scooby, passed away. And Frank can do pretty much anything. If you don't know him, just Google Frank Welker, W-E-L-K-E-R, just like Wes Welker of the, I think now he's in Denver. But anyway, Frank, he's incredible with what he's done. And Frank and I are the best of friends. We're golf buddies. I just love him to death. But this is not Frank's thing. And I was talking to somebody about it the other day. Lorraine Newman. Many of you remember Lorraine from Saturday Night Live, who is a dear friend of mine and has been on the podcast. I got to stop dropping names. Bob De Niro told me that. But Lorraine was on it. She was asking the same thing, because she said, how come Frank hasn't been on your podcast? And I said, well, and we were talking. And I think part of it is that Frank, is a fairly private person, but also we live fairly anonymous lives, which is good and bad. In some respects, it's good because I've never been a big star. I don't know if it would be difficult to have trouble going to Target, Of course, if I was a big star, I wouldn't go to Target. I'd buy one. But the point is that, it's fairly an anonymous profession. And so I'm really lucky because I love this. I started out doing live stage, like Frank. Frank was a stand-up comedian. But I started doing live theater, and I crave this input. I've reached a point now in my career where I know that I have a huge fan base just for my characters. And mind you, I completely understand that I don't draw them and I don't write them. I just voice them. So it's a very collaborative effort. I know that my fan base is literally 6 or 7 years old, especially as a result of shows like Doc McStuffins and Ninja Turtles and all that, to 60 or 70. Because people who were 45 or 50 years ago, 20 years ago, were watching Animaniacs, and now they love it, and their grandkids love it, and it's incredible to be in the position I'm in. So while I can still do this, physically and emotionally, I want to do this. I love being here. I crave this. I'm a junkie for this stuff, because it validates what I've done. Has nothing to do with merchandising or commercials or action figures. It really is a pure expression of love for the characters, and I really appreciate it. That is not to say that Frank does not. But Frank is a little more private, and one of the things that I've tried to explain to Frank is that, Frank, what I hope you know, I kind of hope you don't know this, but I want to show Frank that he is so beloved by literally millions of people that the outpouring of affection at Comic-Con, you could have a 10,000 seat room and people would fill it to see Frank. And because I've gone to do a lot of stuff with the USO, Wounded Warrior Project, and I'm a very big supporter of the military and all that, these kids, and I mean that with all due respect, young men and women who are in the military often are right in my wheelhouse. They're like 18 to 30 years old. So they come back from Afghanistan with their laptops, and they've been watching Pinky and the Brain and Ninja Turtles. It's the coolest thing in the world for me. And I tell Frank, I said, Frank, if you and Peter Cullen would come out and do a live thing for Transformers, you know, the military freaks out over Transformers, man. And I was on that show too, but I wasn't Optimus Prime. And, so anyway, I believe that one day, because I'm an incredibly cockeyed eternal optimist, that one day Frankie will come on, but it has nothing to do with anything except that I think he's fairly private. In fact, when Frank says no, what he says is, oh, Robbie, this is your thing. Robbie, you know, you're the star. They like you. He never says no. He won't say no. He'll just say, I hope you have a good time. That's great that they want to see you. I think that's good. Won't say no. Because he's too dear a man, you know. So anyway, that's the long answer to a simple question. But I wanted to explain it, and I think it's important because some people have asked that a lot. And it's not that I don't want to. It's just he doesn't want to right now. And I love him too much to, you know, to try to pressure him. You know, he's just a great guy. Anybody have a question? Yes, ma'am. The question is on Ninja Turtles, whom do I like playing more, Raphael or Donatello, right? Well, Donatello gets a check every week. So that certainly is in the plus column, as the payments on the Turtle Van are not inexpensive. You know what, sweetie, that is as I've said before, that's kind of a Sophie's choice. There is no downside to either one. I've had the good fortune of being two turtles, which is a big deal. For me, certainly. First of all, with the first Ninja Turtles, nobody knew, including Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, who created the show, certainly nobody knew that it was going to become Ninja Turtles. And that 25 years later, a sweet person like you would be asking this question. You weren't even close to being thought of when the show was made. And so now, to get another crack at a franchise that is so gloriously popular is amazing. And to be truthful, it's a great opportunity to get a crack at a franchise with Viacom's money. I mean, they're doing it right. And the ultimate compliment that we who work on the new show get is when people, many of whom have been here, will come up to me and say, you know, I gotta tell you, I'm 28 years old, and I was like prime turtle age, dude, when you were doing the first show, and it means a lot to me. Nostalgia, we know, is a very powerful emotion, and you kind of go, oh my God, you're screwing with my childhood. Well, trust me, nobody's trying to screw with your childhood. Your parents have done that for you. Just like I did for my kid. And just a second, sir. And so the coolest thing is when somebody comes up, maybe 28, 30 years old, and says, you know what? I was a turtle fanatic, and now I watch the new show, and it's great. That's what we hear more often than not. We rarely hear somebody say, you know, I'm just trying to tell you, I know you gotta work, but the old show's great, you guys suck. And that's not really the case. My son is a great example. My son has told me on many occasions when something sucks. And he was 6 or 7 when Turtles really hit, so it was very cool for him and me to have that going on, as you can imagine. And when the new show came out, he said, let me watch it for 4 or 5 episodes and I'll give you my opinion. And he would. And he called back, he said, you know what, I think I like it better than the new one because it has the humor and the mythology intact, but it also has an interesting romance triangle now because because Donatello and April have a huge crush on each other, and next season Casey Jones is in the mix. So we have a huge fan base of boys, but we also have girls because they like that April is now this tough teenage chick who has a crush on Donnie, and there's a romance aspect to it that adds a huge different twist that makes it that much more appealing. So that's a huge compliment, and so to that extent, I don't really have a preference because they both in my life have been profoundly wonderful. The best thing about both of them is when I get to meet people to whom Turtles or other characters have had such a huge, there's my parole officer. So that when I meet people on whom my characters, the ones I've had the pleasure of voicing, have had a huge effect on their lives. Often it's an effect on their lives that is way, way bigger than just a fan thing. My brother had leukemia, my parents went through a divorce, I had a pet that I was crazy about that passed away, and for 2 days all I could do was watch Pinky and the Brain to get me through it. Those are really important things that I never would have known had I not really jumped into this, live stuff with both feet. And that is an incredible gift to meet people, to say, 20 years ago, man, I hear you do Raphael and it makes me tear up because I was going through chemotherapy. And my doctor said, the Turtles are going to help you fight that cancer. And I got through it, man. And I hear that stuff all the time, and I can't even tell you what that means to me. So it's impossible for me to pick one, But thank you for your question. I really appreciate that. And if you want to be the 5th turtle, come on down to the sewer. Okay? Yes, sir.
I actually have 2 questions. What do you think about Michael Bay messing up with the Ninja Turtles? And the second question is, how did you start your acting career?
Okay. Well, with respect to your first question, that presumes that Michael Bay has messed up, and the movie's not even out yet. I mean, I don't know Mr. Bay. Mr. Bay is hugely successful. I know that often people in those circumstances take a whole lot of crap for decisions that they make. But I have to say, in this Turtle respect, the fans apparently didn't like the way the first script was going, so the huge outpouring of anger made them put the script back for a year. I'm a capitalist, and if people want to see it and they want to spend the money on it, it'll make a lot of money and they'll make another one. If they don't, it'll be done. It's really that simple. It is, as much as I love the personal aspects of the work that I do, because I'm not a big movie star and I'm not a big studio head, I love this. I don't hang out with guys that spend $300 million on a movie. But I can assure you that nobody sets out to take $300 million and make a bad movie. They just don't. It's hard to make a movie. All the other Turtle movies that were done after I did the first batch of cartoons, I think all did really well. They were basically guys in rubber turtle suits. I would suspect that probably now the technology is such that it'll be mocap and they'll look phenomenal. I really don't know anything about the story. I'm not involved with them voice-wise. And that's an interesting point, is people say, dude, how come they didn't use you for the movies? Well, they didn't use me for the other movies either. And it's a great thing it's a very humbling thing and a very positive thing to know that, hey, there wasn't one 12-year-old who stood outside any of those movies and said, I'm not going to go to this movie because Rob Paulsen's not in it. It's not about me, it's about the Turtles. And I get that. So I think it's a little unfair to suggest that Michael Bay has already messed up, because they're shooting it now. I know, what's her name, Fox? Who? Megan Fox is going to be April. She's a beautiful girl. I don't know if she's going to be the best April, but hey, who knows? I don't know who the Turtle guys are. I don't know. I think somebody told me that Will Arnett is like Bern Thompson, who used to be the newspaper guy in the original show or something. So I'm like everybody else, man. I'm willing to give the guy the benefit of the doubt because it's an enormous franchise. Viacom, who owns Paramount, is going to make the movie, who owns Nickelodeon, they spent $60 million to buy the Turtles, which relatively is a bargain when you consider how popular the franchise is. I mean, they probably made their money back in action figures in a year. The Turtle toys are still flying off the shelves. So knowing that they already pushed the script back a year due to fan blowback, indicates to me that they're very sensitive to what the fans want. And I don't think that they're going to set out to spend $250 million on a movie that they're not as sure as they can be people will like. So just as it happened a lot before the new Turtles came out, it's like, oh man, did you hear they're going to make a new Turtles? Are you kidding me? They made a couple after the original ones. Why don't they stop, man? They got it right the first time. And, well, guess what? It's not so bad. Hey, did you know Rob Paulsen's on it? He doesn't suck either. And the same thing happened with Animaniacs. We were doing Tiny Toons, and people go, oh my God, why don't they do more Tiny Toons? What is this Animaniacs thing? Oh my God. Well, guess what? 20 years later, Animaniacs has eclipsed Tiny Toons. Not because Tiny Toons is bad, but because Animaniacs is really good. And 20 years later, we have people here who watch Animaniacs with their children who weren't even born yet. It's that good. So I understand the concern because I understand the deep commitment to the Turtles that the fans have. My suggestion would be to let the guy make his movie. And if it sucks, you'll know pretty quick, and you won't go see it. Or you wait till it comes out on Hulu, or see it at Redbox for $1 or something. I just know how hard it is to make any project, and when it doesn't work, the people still go, ugh, tried really hard. We didn't get it right, but whatever. So it's a big deal, and they know that it's a big deal. And c'est la vie. So the second question was, how did I get started? Well, I did theater. I started out primarily as a singer who started doing theater, and moved to Los Angeles after traveling around the United States and Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti. Just something that happens. I don't even know what that's about. It's just, you know what I mean? It's just Tourette's. It's like, yeah, go Tourette's. So I did a lot of that, a lot of theater, and moved to Los Angeles in 1978, just after the invention of fire, for which I hold the patent, and you're welcome. I did a lot of television and movies, a lot of commercials, a lot of on-camera stuff, because that ostensibly was the reason I went to Los Angeles. And then in the middle 80s, 83, 84, I got the opportunity to start doing cartoons. Then my first ones were G.I. Joe and Transformers. I was Snow Job and Tripwire on G.I. Joe, and I was Slingshot and Air Raid on Transformers. And then it led to other things and blah, 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 blah. And so about the early mid-90s, after Turtles really started happening, I decided to really jump in with both feet and just do voice work. And I'm glad I did, because the first huge, if Ninja Turtles changed my career, then Animaniacs really changed my life. That was an amazing experience that I'm reaping the benefits of today. And I don't even mean financially. I'm reaping this incredible love of these characters. I mean, this whole weekend, I had people that were crying when they said, hello, nurse. Right? All I have to do is go, Narf. And you do that. Right? I mean, how lucky am I? So, thank you so much. And it happens everywhere. It happens in Australia, it happens everywhere. And so, I'm continuing to reap the benefits of that, and so I'm glad that I made the jump just into voice work. And for many reasons, not the least of which is there are a million average-looking white guys with SAG cards in LA, and it's really great as an actor. Many of you are actors here, and it's when, especially when you're not a celebrity, it's about how you look, how big your muscles are, how big your boobs are, do you fit the suit, all that kind of stuff. And it's great not being encumbered by being an average-looking white guy. I have things for which I've been hired that I would never have been considered for on camera. Like Carl Weiser is one. Oh, you're laughing. I think that's so great. I know I'm kind of nerdy, but chicks dig me. Unfortunately, they're baby chickens, but I get a lot of numbers. You'll get that later. Anyway, so that's basically how I started. And virtually everybody, as you can hear on my podcast, whether it's Tress MacNeille, or Jess Harnell, or Jim Cummings, or Mark Hamill, or Tara Strong, or Dee Bradley Baker, or Gray Delisle, we all started in music, stage, improv. Lorraine Newman was a member of the Groundlings before she got Saturday Night Live, and now she's doing a lot of work. I work with her on Doc McStuffins, and I worked with her on Hysteria for a couple of years back in the late 90s, I guess. So it really is usually live performance that gets actors into the voice acting gig, because it's about acting. It's not just about the funny voice. So there you go. Who else? Yes, sir.
You used to do Sonic the Hedgehog in the early 90s.
I did. I was Antoine.
Yeah. I know that sometimes when you're doing voices, they just have you in the booth and you do just your lines.
Mhm.
Other times you do ensemble.
Right.
Did you ever get to hang out with Jaleel White?
I did. Jaleel was a cool guy. Of course, I hung out with him just after he did. What was?
Family Matters?
Yeah, with the.
Yeah.
the
Steve Urkel.
With Steve
Urkel.
Yeah.
I'm so old. I'm like, everything is like. I feel like Helen Keller, you know, because I'll even go to my wife. I'll say, "Honey, I'm going to go to the place where they. It's a." And she's like, "What, a building?" I said, "Yeah, with the the store. Yeah, with the card, and then you and then you then you do the and then you eat when you get home. And go to the store to get some food. Yeah. And that stuff happens. I'm sorry. It's not. No offense, Jaleel. He's a lovely guy, great guy, and of course he was completely different than Steve Urkel.
Right.
And I think a character like that, for what it's worth, in my 2 cents, he was not always there with us because he was doing Family Matters. So they picked him up by himself usually, but I probably worked with him 3 or 4 times. Most of the time it was me and Jim Cummings. I think Kath Soucie was on it. Forgive me, I don't remember exactly who the other ones were, but Jaleel was a delightful kid, and I can only imagine that it's kind of what we were just talking about. You know, he's a wonderful kid, handsome young man, talented man, more than likely very much more versatile than being Steve Urkel.
Right.
But that's a strong character into which he probably got pigeonholed for a while. So that's the good news, bad news, right? I don't have that issue, usually. You know, I mean, Carl Weezer, you know, doesn't sound much like Yakko. And that's really great, because I can also do 2 or 3 shows at the same time, in a day, and not be. So, yeah, that's another thing that I think could be an issue with that. But with respect to Steve himself, he was a lovely guy when I met him, and I've never heard anything but delightful things about him. And the general consensus now, many, many years later, is fans of Sonic, that the version that we did for ABC was better, superior than the Canadian version. So there you go. But thank you. Yes, sir.
2 questions.
Nice to see you again.
Great to see you as well.
Thank you.
2 questions.
Yeah.
One, given your extensive and impressive resume of characters.
I was going to say criminal record. You would give me that. Thank you. Oh, thank you, buddy.
I was trying to.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Definitely.
Yeah, you love me. I know.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, with those characters that you've developed in the casting, how you go about developing the voice and the
Yeah.
characters? And then second, doing the complete 180, obviously you're SAG-AFTRA.
Mm-hmm.
How has that merger been?
Oh, okay. Great question. Did you guys hear the question?
Yeah.
Not quite. The first question, it's Dan, right? The first question Dan asked was, how did I develop the characters that you folks pretty much enjoy? And secondly was, I'm a member of the Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA, which is the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, both performers unions that have merged recently, and his question was about how that has affected things. So the first answer to the first question is, my process is really like any other actors, and I don't mean to be trite and kind of obtuse, but what I do is, and what all of us do, is when we're doing voice work, is you get a picture, kind of a flat 2-dimensional drawing of whatever character it is that you're reading for. Often, if it's a big show like Turtles or Animaniacs or something where they know they're going to spend a lot of money, they'll actually have a little Bible written up of the characters about a backstory for each character and how they interact with other characters. Just really like any acting job. And you make some choices. Most of the time you audition something and then they'll send in, not a tape anymore, but like an MP3 or something to the producers, and they'll call you back. If it's for a big show like with Turtles, the second time around, they auditioned Turtles in the old-fashioned way, which is what I like, and that is that they had half a dozen people in the booth, like producers, writers, toy people, whatever. And then they would bring in Sean Astin and myself and Jason Biggs and the people who were on the show and other actors. I gotta tell you, it was pretty cool because Turtles is such a huge franchise. and such a big thing for so many actors, that I was in there auditioning, I had 2 or 3 callbacks, and it was Jason Bateman, and John Cryer, and Seth Green, all people whom I enjoy, and all people who are auditioning. They didn't need the money. They're going, dude, I want to be a turtle, you know? So it's a powerful thing to be a turtle, let alone 2 of them. I get how lucky I am. But the development of the characters initially is relatively quick, for obvious reasons, because you got to read and then move on. Hopefully you do something that red flags yourself, or you do performance strong enough to get a callback. By the time you get the job, often the characters will morph a little bit as they progress, and you can hear that if you listen to Bugs Bunny from the 40s and Bugs Bunny from the 60s. Mel Blanc is nothing but a genius in either case, but they morph a little bit. Same thing with Pinky. You know, the first few episodes of Pinky is really dumb. Gad, Blaine, I don't know if we're going to do it. And later on it became this, and people seem to like this one much better. So that, and I said, hey, Gad, you're really quite lovely, you with the green camera in the front row. And then your face becomes the colour of my name. So all that stuff kind of morphs, and it's a natural kind of progression. You find little bits and pieces and things that make the character, hackneyed actor phrase, make it more organic. And then there are choices that you make as an actor to help that right off the bat. Like Carl Wheezer. I remember that Carl, I used to do a show called Goof Troop for Disney, right? Thank you. Yeah, I played a character called PJ, who was this kind of rotund guy whose dad was Black Pete Pig, played by Jim Cummings, right? And so when that show was over and they called me to audition for Jimmy Neutron, it was a movie first, I thought, wow, you know, that guy's kind of a big dope, and he's kind of rotund, and kind of nerdy, and, well, Carl Weezer's all that only squished. So I thought, well, maybe if I take the same voice and lighten it up a little bit and make it quieter. Same voice, but it's quieter, it's a little different. And then I put, oh, you like him, don't you? He's so sweet. He's going like this. Are you married? You wanna be? Oh, I love my job. What I did in that case was there's this little thing that Carl does that I made the choice to do that I believe makes him a little more endearing and more natural. And that is the following. It's a minor thing, but these things make a difference. When Carl has this predilection for llamas, he loves llamas. And in the movie, he talks about llamas and his inhaler and all that. So there is this affectation that people have, like Tom Brokaw has it. When he says the letter L, he kind of swallows it. L, yeah. It's called a lazy L. Or if Tom would say it, he would say, it's a lazy L, right? So he would say llama or Lech Balenza today. See that, right there? So I gave that to Carl. So he says, I have my own inhaler and I love llamas. Now, it's not a lot, but it's a conscious choice that makes the character a little more organic, and you don't even have to notice it. But what happens is people watch it over and over again and they go, oh my God, I just love that character. I don't really know why, or he's really cute. And it also fits really well with the beautiful drawing that the guys did. But that was a choice. So that then what would happen is they would write words that had L's in them on purpose. So that, or I would say, they would, I'd fall down and Jim would say, are you okay, Carl? I'd say, oh, I think I broke my scapula. Because it's a funny way, it's not a funny way, it's just an organic way to say the letter L. And it's consistent, right? And so that keeps the character a little more organic and natural. Like what, Daffy Duck did with his, you're despicable, but every F was like this. And so, they would write episodes with lots of S's, and that was Daffy's affectation, And Phil Lamar said something really brilliant. He was on my podcast, he's a dear friend, and we were just together in Dragon Con, and Phil is unequivocally a genius. And when I was asking him who his inspirations and his favorite actors were, he said several, but one of whom, he said, it was very interesting, he said, Bugs Bunny is one of my favorite actors. Not Mel Blanc. He acknowledged Mel, it's Mel. Yeah, but Bugs Bunny. And what he was saying was the character was so well fleshed out, so organic, that you can imagine Bugs being in, duck season, rabbit season, duck season, rabbit season, fire! Boom! And then Bugs goes to his rabbit hole and reads a racing form and has beer, you can see that, and I get his point. So that's how how I do it is how I would do it with any other acting job. I look for places to do those things.
That process.
Right. Yeah, and like I did a show years ago called Time Squad with, it didn't do very well, but it was a great show. I think it got lost in the mess over at Cartoon Network, and it was with Mark Hamill, Pam Siegel, who played Bobby Hill on King of the Hill, and myself. Mark was in a space movie. And so I played this character named Buck Tudrussell, who was this big old feller who was an intergalactic space cop. Now, he's about 8 foot tall, and I figured I could steal the dialect from my brother-in-law who works for the deputy sheriff's department down there in Shelby, North Carolina. So I stole all kind of things from him, not things from him. Not him, him. There's 2 syllables in him. From them people, not them people, them people. Those are minor things, and I'm not a dialect genius, but those little things make a difference. So that when I say, man, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna beat you like a rented mule, son. Don't you think I can't do it? Don't you think I can't do it? I can't do it. Or when I say them boys, it's not them boys, it's them boys. Them boys is crazy. Not them boys are crazy. Them boys is crazy. It's completely wrong grammatically, but it's perfect for the character. The trick is keeping it consistent, right? So that's where those acting choices come in. The second part of your question with respect to the SAG-AFTRA merger, I voted for the merger because I thought, are you a member of AFTRA too?
I am not.
Right, okay, well, you probably will be at some shame, but some people go in and out. But I voted for it because to me, it only made sense that if we're all going to be negotiating from the same side, and it used to be that whichever union, whichever medium you worked in was under the auspices of a particular union. If it was film work, it was SAG, Screen Actors Guild. If it was video work, it was videotape work, it was AFTRA. Or radio was AFTRA. If it was TV, if it was a TV video commercial, it was AFTRA. If it was a radio commercial, it was AFTRA. If it was a TV film commercial, it was SAG, right? If it was a soap opera, which is videotape, it was AFTRA. If it was a TV show like St. Elsewhere on film, it's SAG. So we kind of went, you're paying different dues to different people. I thought it was great to merge. I know that there are still some issues with respect to the pension funds because we had completely different actors, some of whom were never in AFTRA and some were never in SAG. They were fully vested in their respective pension funds, and then they merged the pension funds. So I can imagine logistically it'd be a bit dicey. Yeah, probably could be a bit of a nightmare, but it's really not about me. I think I've been around long enough. It's more about the people coming down the road and how they're going to work that out, and hopefully we'll be in a position of strength to negotiate from one union instead of 2.
You're stronger.
Yeah, if you're going to have it, you might as well have both. That was my point. And I'm sorry about all of the unions, pension fund, that's fairly innocuous, boring stuff, but it's a valid question, but thank you for asking it. Yes, sir.
I kind of got 2 questions. One, has there been a time just, like I guess a typical day-to-day thing where you've ever used your voices? I guess it's going to sound like a weird way of saying it, but kind of for evil. Like if you ever go through a drive-through, use your voices.
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah. Even my kid used to dare me to do it. I do it all the time. Sure.
Well, I was gonna wonder if you could tell us one of those stories, and the second one was, what do you think is the voice that's farthest from your natural voice?
Oh, okay.
You could give us an impression of that.
The second question, you clearly heard the first one. The second question was, what is the voice furthest from my natural voice? Yes. Right? Okay. The first question is, it happened once really, in a really big way, years ago at our local McDonald's. They had Animaniacs Happy Meal. So my kid was with me, and he was probably, that was probably 1995. So Ash was probably 11 or 12, I guess, at the time. And he said, I bet you wouldn't do Yakko for the guy at the drive-thru. I said, okay. So, I'm gonna help you. And it's usually not like, it's usually like, welcome to McDonald's. I have a Big Mac. Step back from the microphone! And so I said, hi, yeah, this is Yakko Warner. I would like 14 Big Macs, 2 with no meat, 1 with no lettuce, 18 with no buns, and I would like 3 large fries, but I want half the fries of the first large fry put in a larger box because I'm kind of being all this stuff, and a water. And there was a There was an appropriate pause of confusion. Maybe the guy had a seizure, I don't know. And he said, who is this? And I said, it's Yakko Warner, asshole. And my kid goes, don't tell your mother. And then the guy on the other side starts going, so we went back and forth for a few minutes, and finally I went inside, and it was great, because of course I told them who I was, and the kids were great, and they were just, it was, can I get your picture? So all the McDonald's kids were coming out saying, hold on, wait a second, I want to get my picture with Yakko. But yeah, we did that, and then of course it would happen occasionally that my kid would want to order a pizza, but he'd want Raphael to order the pizza. So we did that a few times at the local Domino's, and it got to be kind of fun because the people that worked at Domino's would kind of expect it, and they'd know. I'd say, hi, this is, I know who this is, this is Raphael, hang on a second. They put me on speakerphone. Go ahead, Raphael, order a pizza. Hi, it's Raphael, I'd like a hot fudge marshmallow, tuna fish, and Dorito pizza, man, Make it in 30 minutes or less, I'm gonna kill you. So yeah, it was great fun. And this would happen a lot too, because it's a great honor and thrill to have a child that was, a little boy way into all the stuff I did. I was so incredibly lucky. I adore my boy. He's a great, lovely man. He's turned out to be a really cool guy. But it was so cute because he would come home from school and he'd be, I don't know, in 7th or 8th grade, and phoning me. He'd say, hello? Yeah, no, he is. Yeah, of course he is. Well, why would I lie about that, Okay, Dad, Jason wants to talk to Raphael. Hi, Jason, yeah, turtle power, dude, I'll see you in the sewer. Okay, wow, cowabunga. I told you. Yeah, okay, later. I get that a lot. So, yeah, it's a lovely thing to do. And what happens here a lot as well is folks are walking by the thing and they kind of look at my little banner and they go, oh my God, wait a minute, were you? Were they Yakko? And they go, eyes roll back in their head, the blood drains out of their face. What a great experience. And the second part of your question was what?
What voice is farthest?
Oh, the furthest one from mine. I would say probably Carl. Because I don't talk really soft a lot, as you can imagine. But I have to say that the girls like Carl. Probably because they know he is completely devoid of any sexual tension. Or maybe a lot, because he never expresses it. And so one day, Carl will probably pull out an axe and kill everyone. You never know. Yes, sir.
What will Carl sound like when he hits puberty?
Like this. That's as good as it gets, bro. Yeah, I'm sorry, I've already hit puberty, and it was not kind to me. Thank you for asking, knucklehead. Yes, sir.
Quick comment and then a proper question.
Sure.
My kids have a completely wrong, a 1980s version of Geography because your soundtrack has a major playing on my thing. So I know the states and their capitals.
Yeah.
But because of you, they don't know their countries very well.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But the question is, as an actor, and I think you talked earlier about, it sounded, from what you were saying, it sounded like you have a lot of respect for the script.
Oh, yeah.
The people who are writing the characters. But a lot of the writers come and go, and one of the things I'll see with other work is that the actors will kind of follow, like the script will have the people jumping through a hoop that doesn't really fit for that character. Do you ever do that pushback? And with your professionalism, is that a challenge for you or just something you really get?
No, that's a very good question. I think part of what your question is, do we ever get to ad-lib and stuff, or do we sort of question what is on the page if we feel like we've been doing this character for a while and we got a new writer? Yeah. Yes, on both accounts. It is rarely, if ever, contentious. I don't know that I've ever been in an argument with a writer. Because I'm smart enough to know what I'm not smart at. I'm a good actor, I'm a competent singer. I am always trying to get better. And I think the same is true with people who are good at their craft in terms of writing and all that. The truth is that many of the shows that you guys like were so beautifully written right out of the box. I mean, the Animaniacs scripts were laugh out loud funny just reading them. Same with Pinky, same with Jimmy Neutron. They really truly were. The Tick scripts were fantastic from front to back. Mighty Max as well was actually very well written in kind of an intense, dark way. Very cool. Great cast, Tim Curry and Tony Jay and Richard Mall from Night Court, and I was Max. So they were all pretty solidly written. Often, though, what happens is you get a script that is so well written that it inspires somebody to improvise. It's kind of like working with other really world-class actors. Like Maurice LaMarche is the brain, and just won back-to-back Emmys for his work on Futurama. Zoidberg, and no, that's Billy. Mo does Kid Croker, and probably a bunch of other ones that you would know. Morbo, and anyway, Mo won back-to-back Emmys. Never won an Emmy for Pinky, but back-to-back for Futurama. An incredibly gifted man. He makes me a much better actor. So what happens is we get the really well-written scripts, and then we start to add stuff to them that are contextual based on the characters that we know so well. So it's kind of a very synchronistic sort of thing where the writers write good stuff, and then we hopefully embellish it. And if the writers the cut of the writer's jib is the same as mine, they'll say, "Oh, dude, that was great. That was great. I love that." Usually the writers don't say, "Stick to the script. Okay, excuse me, I wrote that. Excuse me, Mr. Emmy winner." And I don't get that. I usually get, "Dude, that was very cool. Put that in." Or, "We'll try it. We're not sure it'll work in the context of the whole show," but it's encouraged. I believe that I've gotten to a place in my career where people trust my instincts, and so often I'm hired to do that kind of stuff. There are times when I wish I could cite certain examples, but I know I've had them where I've read something that has been written by a newer writer who is not familiar with the arc of the show, and I'll say, usually I don't want to embarrass the guy in front of the producers. I won't say it in a recording session. I'll say it, I'll take the producer aside, and I'll say, "And I'm sure the guy's terrific. I don't want to embarrass him. I'm not angry. God knows this is just a cartoon. But this doesn't sound like something that would work. Not because I'm a prima donna, but because I respect the fans. And I know the fans get it, like we were talking about with Michael Bay. You guys are very into the characters we do. You butter our bread. So I want to respect that. So if I see something that doesn't feel right to me, I will say it, but I won't do it at the expense of somebody's ego. It's not about embarrassing them. You know? I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Oh,
Hi.
So you have such an extensive resume, and it seems like you're constantly busy. Like on your app, it says, "Where's Rob?" And
Yeah.
it's a different convention. Besides the podcasts and voiceovers and conventions, is there something else? Like if you have like just this massive downtime of either just there's no work coming in, or just nothing's coming up for the podcast. What else do you do? What else?
Well, then I'm usually getting a prescription for Ativan to calm me down because I'm not working. Just kidding. No, I'm a golf fanatic. I play a lot of golf. I'm a golf freak. I'm a motorcycle nut. I'm a sports car nut. I've spent way too much money on both. But I've been very fortunate that I've had all my midlife crisis cars before my midlife crisis. I grew up the road, born in Detroit and raised in Flint, Michigan, two cities which have the dubious distinction of being broke. And so I told my friends in LA at a recent public event, I said, "Well, look, folks, all I can tell you is that I was born in Detroit and left. I was raised in Flint and left, and they're both broke. You better hope I don't leave Los Angeles." How's that for an ego for you? So, but no, I thank you for asking. Actually, what I wanted to be before I became an actor was a hockey player. I grew up wanting desperately to play for the Detroit Red Wings. And I was a good hockey player. Good high school player, had a chance to play a bit in college, and some kid from Winnipeg beat the living daylights out of me with a completely legal check and hit me so hard that I woke up, 6 months later, and they said, and my helmet was like this, and my jaw was like that, and he's like, "I'm really sorry, eh?" It's okay, man. I'm good. And I thought, wow, okay, I get it. I have no business trying to make a nickel playing hockey because I've gone as far as I can go. So my second desperate passion was performing, and I started really, really getting into that when I was probably about 19 or 20. So by the time I moved to Los Angeles, I'd had 2 or 3 years of practical experience traveling around the country, live music, many nights. I was in a rock and roll band for years. But that's what I really want to do. So I still play hockey. Not as much as I'd like. I played for about 10 years on a team with a bunch of actors. There are a lot of guys out in California from Detroit, Minnesota, Massachusetts, Toronto, wherever, and play hockey. We would go around raising money for by playing the old timers of National Hockey League teams to raise money for charities, almost all of which were geared around children. And I was doing Turtles and Animaniacs, so I could be really helpful with the kids, and I could skate backwards. So it's like, okay, we'll get this guy on our team. And huge fun. It was, Jason Priestley and Matthew Perry and Richard Dean Anderson and Alan Thicke, and really just had a blast. Going to play hockey with people who are my heroes. My hero to this day is Gordie Howe. And I have a giant 3-foot Red Wing sticker on the back of my SUV. So hockey is one of my joys. Golf junkie, and if I have time, I jump on my bike and blast through the Santa Monica Mountains and go way too fast and, just have fun. Yeah. Thank you for asking. Appreciate that. Yes, sir.
There are a lot of dirty jokes on Animaniacs.
Heck yeah, there are. Notice I said, heck yeah, there are. There were a number of them that actually got by the censors. Like fingerprints? I don't think so. I still don't know how that made it. But the truth is that Tress and I were talking about this the other day. By the way, I hope someday you get to meet Tress McNeil. She is one of the most lovely women you will ever meet in your life, and she's so smart. The lady who played Dot. She also does, I don't know how many characters on The Simpsons, and she was Babs on Tiny Toons. She is such a delightful woman. I've known Tress for 34 years, and I'm so in love with that woman. She is such an incredibly gifted lady. And I was talking to her about that very thing. I said, man, I would pay money to get a CD of the outtakes of Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain. And they are often, they're a deep shade of blue. You can't do that kind of stuff for a long time without stepping off the curb a little bit, And to this day, I won't do it here because we have several, younger ears here, and I'm very respectful of that, having been a parent of youngster ones myself. But people love it when they hear their favorite cartoon characters swear. So to those of you who are grown-ups, if you are interested in that sort of thing, Maurice LaMarche and I, Pinky and the Brain, did do you guys know Chris Hardwick, the Nerdist?
Yeah.
Chris is going to be on my podcast, by the way, on the 2nd of October. The next 3 coming up, by the way, of the Talking Tunes podcast. Wednesday will be Gray Delisle, who you will probably know from so many things that she's done, and she's just lovely. She plays Vicky on Fairly Odd Parents, along with so many other things. And then the following Wednesday will be Josh Robert Thompson, who plays Jeff the Robot on Craig Ferguson. Hysterical. Jeff, that skeleton guy's a genius. So he's going to be on the following, and then the Wednesday, October 2nd, Chris Hardwick will be on my podcast. But the reason I'm telling you that is that Maurice LaMarche and I were on the Nerdist podcast about 1.5 years ago, I think, right, Carrie? Something like that?
Yeah.
Like March or something of last year.
Yeah.
And so it was afternoon with Pinky and the Brain on Chris's podcast, and no holds were barred. And if you don't have your parents monitoring your podcasting, listening, that is a really good one. Because Mo really goes off. And it is, I gotta say, it's really funny. And I'm very respectful, and I, totally get that it might not be appropriate for everybody, but it's really funny. So go listen to Maurice LaMarche and Rob Paulsen on The Nerdist. You'll dig that. But yeah, the truth is, of course, lots of stuff. It happened a lot on Jimmy Neutron, too, and trust me, hearing Carl say certain naughty words really funny. Yes, sir, you got a question over there.
In all the characters you've done in this job that you love so much, were there ever any characters that you just legitimately just did not like doing?
Wow, that's a good question. Wow, all of a sudden I started talking like Chris Walken. I don't know why. It's just this is weird. Timing. And honestly, I don't know that there are any that I was doing that I've done it's pretty difficult to not like this gig, because first of all, I chose to do this. So there are two facets to that statement. The fact is that I chose to be an actor, and I made my way to California and didn't know anybody and competed with everybody else and made a lot of friends, and I'm grateful to be here. So I'm reaping the rewards of my relatively courageous choice. It's a courageous choice anytime you want to do something that sometimes goes against what your family or friends, decide to, whether it's not just being an actor. Sometimes you say, I've been to college and I got my degree in business, but I really want to be a botanist, or I really want to work in an auto body shop, man. That's what floats my boat. I dig working on cars. But you got your degree. I know, but that's what I want to do. And so it's often a courageous choice. The other side of that is that I have nobody to blame if things go south, right? I can't say, oh, this is awful. This is really hard. Well, guess what, dude? Who shoved the gun in your mouth to be an actor? Give yourself 5 minutes to feel sorry for yourself and then move on. Or don't do it anymore, right? So I've never really had a character that I've been lucky enough to be hired for. They've given me money to do it. Certainly there are ones that have been more important to me in my career and ones I like better, but there's never been one that I don't like doing. There have been some that have been really tough on my throat, one of which that actually never made it to air. There was a show that we did years ago that was based on a comic book from England called Dan Dare, Pilot of the Future. And it wasn't obscure there, it's a big deal there, but it's fairly obscure here. It was a British cast. Tim Curry was on that one. Oh my God, Julian Holloway was on that show, whose father was Stan Holloway, who played the original Henry Higgins on Broadway in My Fair Lady. Really interesting actors, right? All British except me. So I played this British character, but it was this disembodied brain called the Mekon. And I came up with this voice, man. I was pushing air through my vocal cords with no real sound but the air. And it is quite onerous on my chords. So when I read for it, I get this call back, they called me up and said, hey man, they want to use you for the Mekon, you got the job. And the first thing was, whoa! And I went, whoa. Because nobody ever wants to think they can't do it, right? And the truth was that probably I couldn't do that. So there's a good lesson. Make sure you can do it, because it's hard, because you don't want to turn down any job, but you don't want to ruin yourself from another gig, for another gig. So the producer was very kind. I was very straight with him and said, look, I auditioned for this, I love doing it, I want to do it. Is there any way that we can just read through the script, and at the end of the show, we'll pick up all the Mekon's lines with this kind of thing, so I don't blow myself out during the show. In other words, I want to make sure that I'm ready to do it either before or after, so we all do it in one shot. And they were great with it. The show never made it to air, didn't get picked up, whatever. But that was one where I probably would have said it wasn't fun to do it. It wasn't I didn't like it, it was difficult. But it was my fault. I chose that, and then, for better or for worse, they liked what I chose, and many of you won't know this reference, but many of you will, whether you like sports or you're familiar with a movie called Pride of the Yankees. With all due respect to Lou Gehrig, I'm the luckiest man on the face of the earth, okay? Somebody over here, yes sir? Mark, right?
Yes.
Hey Mark.
You said you were in a band. What did you play?
And by the way, would you just tell Eric to shut up? Eric, you come in there in that hot shot contraption of yours, you've been making so much noise, so just let Mark speak, will you? Knucklehead. Please, Mark, go on.
You said you were
Eric's my buddy, I can say that.
You said you were in a band. What did you play, and where can we hear the music?
Oh, dude. I was in a band years ago called Led Zeppelin. Even you guys laugh at that. No, I was in a band called Sass, and that was we were a very good cover band up in the central Michigan and actually southern Michigan area. And thankfully, there's no place you can hear that music unless you get a hold of one of my buddies. Actually, I got to say, the band was a very, very, because we were all 20, 21 years old. It was a very good cover band. We did great songs. We did a lot of stuff by Steely Dan, a lot of stuff by Zeppelin, The Who, Jethro Tull, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So it was a very eclectic band. We did everything from Leon Russell and George Benson to Led Zeppelin. It was a very, very good. The players were great. I was just a singer. But I learned a lot, and that's why I recommend that any of you who are interested, when you're younger, please, 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 do whatever you can to get in front of people. It's a great training ground, because you learn how to make mistakes, you learn that the mistakes aren't the end of the world, you deal with it, you learn what it's like to get a hook on people and do something they like, and that reaction is absolutely second to none. It is like a drug for me, but I really crave it. Due in no small part to experiences like this. I can do this every single day because I really love hearing the feedback from the audience. But fortunately for me, I we all have these epiphanal moments in our lives and you look back and go, boy, am I glad I did this. Am I so glad I married this woman? Or I wish I hadn't married that guy. You know, whatever. You have these moments you look back on in your life, and I'm older now, so I can say that with authority. And one of them was I had an epiphanal moment in a place called Mr. G's Lounge in Flint, Michigan. And we had this really great band. Sass was going like great guns. We were booked a year in advance. Man, I thought I was living the dream. I was 21 years old, living in my folks' house. I had a long mullet. I had tight jeans. I was rock and roll. I had a brand new Honda Accord, 1976, with a manual choke. Thank you very much. And I was, $4,500 for a brand new Honda. In Flint, Michigan, no less. Talk about being able to take a punch. Holy shit. So I remember one night, Mark, I was back at this bar in Flint, and you know, the usual gang of suspects were there, great crowd, lovely people. And there was one fellow whom I'll never forget. His name was Mickey, and he was a two-fisted Heineken drinker, always plowed, you know, God bless him. But I remember we got done with some song, and he had his head in the speaker cabinets, and he was still screaming when the song ended, you know. Okay, bro. And he comes up to me, took a little break, he goes, man, you guys are amazing. I said, thank you, Mickey. That's very cool, buddy. I really appreciate it. You know what? You're the best band in Flint. And I took a slight exception because at the time, Grand Funk Railroad was the best band in Flint and the world. But I said, well, thanks, bro. I appreciate that. I accept that compliment and the spirit in which you gave it. And there was like this little angel that popped on my shoulder and said, dude, he's right. This is as good as it gets for you. If you don't, this is it. This is your life, dude. Not that it's a bad one, just understand you're 21 years old and you've reached what you're going to do here in Flint. Within 6 months, I was in LA, and having already been on the road with a theater company. So I can tell you from the experience, it was a fabulous thing, and I love those guys. They were incredible players. Many of them are still playing, but that experience of being in a band was incredibly helpful. And I know that we're done, so this is for you, sweetie, and the rest of you can listen. Many of you like Animaniacs, so you probably want to turn on your phones. Nah, forget it. Oh, I'm just kidding. You're supposed to go, oh! Of course, I would never do that to you. By the way, are those Converse high tops? Ultra high tops?
Yeah.
Are they made by Converse?
No, they're Airwalk.
Those are so bitchin'. Those are so cool. All right. So many of you, by the way, before I go on, before I finish, I just want to say thank you so much, for having me here in Cincinnati. It's been an absolute joy and truly an honor. It is not hyperbole to suggest that I am profoundly grateful that you folks have listened to my stuff for 30 years. Well, except you because you're 11. But I really need to tell you, not only how much it means to me, but it really means a lot to all of us who do this, that you folks pay attention and you make us feel like rock stars. And that is very, very, very lovely, and we're grateful for it. So, having said that, I will be downstairs signing stuff afterwards for a couple hours, but before that, I'd like to leave you with the following, and that is this. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic, Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana, and still Guatemala, Bolivia, then Argentina, and Ecuador, Chile, Brazil, Costa Rica, Belize, Nicaragua, Bermuda, Bahamas, Barbados, and Juan, Paraguay, Uruguay, Suriname, and French Guiana, Barbados, and Guam, Norway, and Sweden, and Iceland, and Finland, and Germany now, and Greece, Switzerland, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Italy, Turkey, and Greece, Poland, Romania, Scotland, Albania, Ireland, Russia, Oman, Bulgaria, Saudi Arabia, Hungary, Cyprus, Iraq, and Iran. There's Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, both Yemen, Kuwait, and Bahrain. The Netherlands, Luxembourg, Belgium, and Portugal, France, and Denmark, and Spain. India, Pakistan, Burma, Afghanistan, Thailand, Nepal, and Bhutan. Cambodia, Malaysia, then Bangladesh, Asia, and China, Korea, Japan. Mongolia, Laos, and Tibet, Indonesia, the Philippine Islands, Taiwan. Sri Lanka, New Guinea, Sumatra, New Zealand, then Borneo, and Vietnam. Tunisia, Morocco, Uganda, Angola, Zimbabwe, Djibouti, Botswana, Mozambique, Zambia, Swaziland, Gambia, Guinea, Algeria, Ghana, Burundi, Lesotho, and Malawi, Togo, the Spanish Sahara is gone. Nigeria, Chad, Liberia, Egypt, Benin, Gabon, Tanzania, Somalia, Kenya, and Mali, Sierra Leone, and Algeria, Dahomey, Namibia, Senegal, Libya, Cameroon, Congo, Zaire, Ethiopia, Guinea-Bissau, Madagascar, Rwanda, Myanmar, and Cayman, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Yugoslavia, Kuwait, Mauritania, then Pennsylvania, Monaco, Liechtenstein, Malta, and Palestine, Fiji, Australia, Sudan. Thanks very guys. Have a good time. Really appreciate it.